Well, good day, everyone. Welcome to Betting Weekly Live here with Steve Wyss and James Eastham. We're here to talk about the penultimate Europa League round. There's already been 2 matches in this round, James, and there's been a couple of surprises. So are we going to get that sort of continual theme today? Are we in dangerous waters with Europa League?
Well, it's a good question. Yeah, I think we'll have a couple of surprises. I think that the first thing to say, Steve, we've been covering this competition on the Thursday show pretty much all season. The first thing to say is there's still almost everything yet to be decided. And that's crucial, I think, for today, because, you know, I think a lot of people might have thought with only 2 match days to go, some teams would be already eliminated. Other teams would have already qualified in the top 8. It's not really the case, is it? There's an awful lot still up for grabs. Very, very few teams know their fate. So I think that probably will lead to a few surprises, because almost everybody has still got something to play for, haven't they? It means that most of the fixtures we're going to look at today are still competitive from both sides, really.
Listen, and the other thing we've got to learn from the Conference League, the final 2 rounds there, is that even teams that were out of contention, this is big for these teams. Even like a draw or a win is massive for their budget. So, you know, you might look at the table and think, oh, they're not going to care, they're not going to bother. But they will bother. Even in the Champions League this round, we saw Bologna win, we saw Leipzig win, and you know, there was questions about motivation with them. So it's the way it goes. But welcome in, everyone. Anyway, what's your best bet today? Chris Graham. I mean, the Milan won 1-0. I did say yesterday that win by 1 goal would have been a good bet there. Rick Haley, good to see you as well. Ming Chung, Duncan, Simeon, Clayton as well. Good to see you too. James Marihan, put in your best bet today. We've got one there from Byron. He says got Lazio, Frankfurt moneyline parlay, and also Fenerbahce and USG are a moneyline parlay as well there. Before we get into the matches, just a quick look at the outright market. It is backable. You've actually got an exclusive pick on the newsletter this week, James. But what I wanted to ask you is the state of affairs at the top 2 teams here, Tottenham and Manchester United. Big question mark about them domestically at the moment. Obviously, things can change. A lot can change, you know, by April and May. But that just doesn't ring right with me. But they both should be the favourites in the market. Plus 450 for Tottenham, 500 for Manchester United. At this point in time, you couldn't back them with monopoly money. Obviously, we've still got the end of the transfer window to go. That just feels to me like they should be bigger.
Yeah, I completely agree, Steve. When Bruno Amorim came in as manager at United, I actually thought, you know what, if he has an immediate effect here, United are potential winners of this competition, because we know the quality in the squad is really good. Okay, not good enough to win the Champions League, but they're in the Europa League. But obviously, how things have played out for United since then, you simply can't back them, in my opinion, at that price. And I'd say Tottenham even more so. I mean, they're shorter odds, aren't they? I don't really understand why they're shorter odds than Man United. And like you, I don't understand why those 2 are so clear at the top of the market. But having said all of that, Steve, I look at the outright market. I think it's absolutely wide open. You know, you don't want to be too critical of the teams in the competition or the competition in general. But I don't see a huge amount of quality on that list if you're looking through the top 8 and then into the top 16. For me, there are not many teams at the moment in any of the top leagues who are in this competition who are doing particularly well. And then if you look at the teams in this competition from some of the leagues outside the top 5, I'm thinking of the likes of Ajax, Galatasaray, decent teams, but not really enough about them to back them as well. So it's absolutely wide open here. And but I agree with you. I think Man United and Tottenham at the moment are just too short. There's nothing that they're doing at the moment in this competition or in the domestic league, in the Premier League, that would make me want to back them, you know?
Yeah, that's my problem here as well. I don't really fancy the top 2 in the market. I don't like a lot in the top 6 or 7 in the market, to be honest. Do quite like your newsletter pick, I've got to be honest. But I'm struggling to sort of find someone to take them on with, but maybe I can find that out after the transfer window's done. I think then we're going to know who's playing for everyone. I think I'll have a more definitive, maybe a couple of outright picks, which I will advise for that. There's a few people saying in the comments here, Galatasaray 20-1 big if Victor stays. Roma as well. That's a very good point. Frankfurt could be a lively outsider. So there's what you remember this year. No one drops down from the Champions League either, which I quite like that. So everyone's in competition and set. So we're not getting involved there. But penultimate round of action. As usual, we've got early kickoffs and late kickoffs. First 4 games on the slate there. Tottenham away to Hoffenheim. Qarabag against FCSB. Porto Olympiacos. Bodo Glimt Maccabi. Tel Aviv. Qarabag against FCSB and the Porto match. Have you got anything there, James? Because I really haven't there. It's a tricky 2 ties.
Yeah, tricky 2 ties. What I would say, Qarabag on the face of it looked quite short, plus 120. If you were to look at where they are in the league table, they're 33rd. Steaua Bucharest are 10th. So a very short price on Qarabag. But then, for teams like Qarabag down there near the bottom of the league table, Steve, it's do or die, really. They're not out of it, but there's more on it for some of those teams at the bottom than the teams who are maybe 8th, 9th and 10th. Those teams who are 8th, 9th and 10th, they're not quite there yet, and they're caught between trying to get a top 8 place and the top 16 place, but it's not do or die. So that's why I would look at it. I think some of these ties, motivation is not necessarily difficult to read, but I wouldn't rule out some of the teams at the bottom who maybe haven't done that well so far because, their minds are going to be really focused now. So I don't have anything on those 2 games either, but I do think some of these sort of mismatches as far as the league table is concerned could be really fascinating games.
Yeah, I've quite liked FCSB, the Romanian side in Europe this season. Generally hard to beat, apart from when Rangers beat them 4-0. The Porto match, I feel the lines are quite fair there. I've been getting a few messages today from friends and stuff like that, people after a bit of advice. And I always get questions about Bodo Glimt. We'll come on to that match in a minute. But the most recent message I got was, how bad are Hoffenheim? Someone messaged me. Because, I think there's a few people out there who are just fading Spurs at any possible opportunity they can. Now, the actual answer is Hoffenheim are struggling this season. They've legitimately been one of the worst 4 or 5 teams in Germany, but they have just had a win away to Holstein Kiel, which it's not a great win, that really, but it is a win. Is a win. Plus 185 here. I mean, I personally couldn't trust them. If I was to take something here, I would go the goal line. Actually, I'd go, knocking on the door of over 3 goals here. But for those who are sort of blindly betting against Tottenham at the minute, could you do that here?
Yeah, possibly. It's one of those games, Steve, where I thought maybe a score draw. And again, I'm like you. I look at Hoffenheim. Yeah, they're the outsiders at home. There's not enough about them for me to back them. And the same with Tottenham. Where Tottenham have been playing recently, 130 doesn't appeal at all. It's one of those where, we tend to think which of the 2 should we back. Maybe the tie as the outsider of the 3 would be the way to play it. But I'd be inclined to leave the game alone. I don't have a tip on this game or a lean. And like you, I tend to move towards the goal line because I don't really trust either of these 2 teams at the moment.
Yeah, me neither. But I can tell you, Spurs are the 3rd most popular play by percentage of ticket volume in the Europa League today. That's no real surprise. This is the 3rd most wagered match as well in terms of handle. So as you can imagine, I think over 90% of the money is on Spurs for this match. A significant 4-figure bet on them on the money line at plus money, it must be said. So, Spurs themselves, for those who do like Spurs, they are, they might seem attractive odds. I don't have a bet for the game either, but I would be leaning towards the goal line. I do have a selection in the Bodo Glimt game. Bodo Glimt against the Israeli side, Maccabi Tel Aviv. And I think, what is the coldest place that you've ever been to, James, in your life? Because this is going to be minus 10 degrees Celsius here in the Arctic Circle, and it's going to feel close to minus 20 degrees Celsius. So, I don't know if you've ever been at temperatures that low before.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I lived in Lille in northern France for many years, Steve, and I'll tell you what, that could be very cold in January, but I don't think we ever got to -10 or -20, so that would be a new one for me.
Yeah, I was going to say, apart from Manchester, but -1 -1 Asian handicap on Bodo Glimt at -125. I think that's the bet here. So as long as they win the game, you're not gonna lose any money. Simple fact is, we know how strong they are at home. I mean, they've never had a match at home in January before in any competitive game, I don't believe. So this is brutal conditions for the Israeli team, and this is where surely home advantage is worth a massive amount in any model that's going to price up this game. They're used to it. Also, an artificial pitch, of course, which is an advantage in itself. And the only sort of negative is that Bodo Glimt have not had a competitive game since the last round, but they are usually very well coached and they should be ready for this one. There's a little bit of a political edge in this game as well. We won't get into it, but I've got a feeling that Bodo Glimt might be a bit more fired up from that particular angle and be bang up for the game, really. So I've got to be taking the Norwegian champions here against quite a poor or average Maccabi Tel Aviv side, in my opinion. The Israeli teams are quite hard at times to predict, aren't they? Because they've been playing a lot of their home games on neutral turf and that. So, but for me, that would be one of the better bets of the day. Just going through the comments here now. Peter is right. They were disappointed against Qarabag, but they were very good against Besiktas. Now, who's the better side out of those two, Peter? That's a good question, actually. Qarabag have been surprisingly decent away from home, actually, in the last calendar year. Watch that game. There were so many chances. And then here we go from producer Troy. He had a preseason college game in late Feb on the Atlantic coast, -2 Fahrenheit. Is that about -20 Celsius? I mean, I think the coldest I've ever been was probably when I've been skiing one time in the Alps. I don't know what that would have reached, maybe -10.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the sort of weather where it gets you on the face more than anything, I find, in your eyes. You need, it's going to be brutal for these for this match. It's almost inhumane, isn't it? It shouldn't be a match.
Very, very difficult. Very difficult.
Very much so. Right, on to some more early kickoff games. And you've got an official pick here, James. I have to say I do agree with this one. Fenerbahce against Lyon. Jose Mourinho here up against French opponents. And what's the bet?
Yeah, well, I feel that Fenerbahce are worth back in here, Steve. I think I might have put it as a lean. I'm not sure or a pick, but my view on this game is that Lyon have got no reason really to be supported. We've talked about them on the weekly show a couple of times. We're going to be talking about them on the weekly show that will come out before this weekend's matches in France. There's a lot of problems at Lyon. We know that. The problems for those of them, for viewers who maybe don't follow League One that closely, are that a lot of players are up for sale. They're trying to raise money this month in the transfer window because they've got financial problems. Some players have already gone. Other players might still go. It's certainly creating a lot of uncertainty in the squad. They recently went out of the French Cup against 5th Division amateurs, which was a humiliating defeat. And there's even talk over the last few days that the manager, Pierre Sarge, might be under pressure. So it's a tough time for Lyon. And alongside all that, Steve, they've done really well in the Europa League, and might sound counterintuitive, but they're sitting 4th in the table. Do they really need to win this? Their minds might be elsewhere. They're in a good position. They're already definitely in the top 16. They're going to want to go for a top 8 place, obviously. But I just think there's a little bit of pressure off them in Europe because they've done so much good work already. And I don't think they're in the best frame of mind. So Fenerbahce are my lean on the game. Looking at the prices, would I like a little bit more than +112? Probably. I'd rather they were around 130, 135, something like that, and they're not. But I still think they've got enough to win the game because, they're under more pressure than Lyon. I think they're down in 22nd in the table. And there's a lot of experience in that side. There are players who won't be fazed by having to get a result here. If you look at the likes of Dzeko and maybe Tadic, Amrabat, Fred might be playing in midfield. So it's a decent lineup with players who are used to big occasions. I just think the timing for Lyon is all wrong, and I'm not sure if they can go all the way through this game matching Fenerbahce in terms of focus and motivation at the moment. So It's a little bit shorter than I'd like, as I say, but in terms of who do I think will win, I think this is a really good chance for Fenerbahce because I think they're facing Lyon at probably the best time you could have faced Lyon at any time, really, since the European competition started. Because, as I say, they've done well, they've got the players, but right now things aren't really correct at Lyon. So, yeah, that would be my view on the game. And Fenerbahce, I think, you've got a good chance here to get 3 points.
71% of the money is on Fenerbahce, but 53% of the tickets are on Lyon. So the heavy hitters are backing the Turkish side more, and probably the general public are more on Lyon. It is the third most wagered game of the day with BetRivers Sportsbook on Europa League. So plenty of interest here. I mean, I was looking at the Fenerbahce side, and it's a very old team, isn't it? No doubt about it whatsoever. Average age must be very high, but I mean, with that comes a lot of experience, of course, and that can be. This reminds me a little bit of was it 2 days ago? Sorry, yesterday. Besiktas against Bilbao, and obviously the Turkish side won that game 4-1. Bilbao probably the better team. Well, they are the better team, but they rested players. It didn't really matter as much to them. And I think with Lyon, it's the same here. They can afford a defeat, but they're a mess. They're just tell us. We never really have a chance to talk about it on the Betting Weekly Extra Time, but Lyon's owner, John Textor, this guy, I don't like what he comes out with sometimes. I think he puts pressure on the players. I think he puts pressure on the manager. Sometimes he's straight talking. Some might say that's a positive. But at the minute, I think he's in one of his phases. He has these phases where he just brings a lot of controversy to the club, and it's just like a dark cloud around Lyon, and the atmosphere just goes.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talking, certainly from him at the moment. Just to go up to one of the comments there, someone said Fenerbahce minus 0.25 on the Asian handicap. I think that's a really good way to play it because obviously you only lose Felix there. You only lose half your stakes if it ends in a draw. But on John Textor, yeah, I mean, he's been sort of throwing his weight around verbally with regard to the league as well, speaking about how the TV deal was done last year. And I think that's probably gone down quite well at Lyon because he sounded as though he's supporting the club. But yeah, I think you're right. You know, it's a slightly different approach in a way to what they were used to under the last chairman, Jean-Michel Aulas, although he was obviously very outspoken. I think generally with Lyon, we mentioned this on the show, they just need this window closed. And then I think the talking will stop once the window's closed and they know who's in their squad for February through to May. And I'd love them to keep the manager, Pierre Sarge. I'm surprised he's under pressure. I think he's done a very good job. And, you know, if they keep him, I think they'll have done the right thing. And once the squad's settled in February, they can move forward. So, but you're right. It's slightly fractious at the moment. And it's just not the right setting, I think, this game either, because they're facing a team who, like you said, Steve, are full of experience. And I think that's going to make it quite challenging for them as well, Lyon. Unless they're absolutely on their game, this is obviously a tough place to go. So, yeah, I think, as I say, the price on Fenerbahce a bit shorter than I'd like, but I can't see Lyon winning this one at all.
Yes, exactly the same lean from me here. Fenerbahce on the money line and plus 112. Main reason it's a lean is I wanted bigger. I wanted about plus 130 really here. Plus 125. The quarter ball Asian line is the safer way because Mourinho is a wily old manager. He sometimes will take a point if he has to, and it wouldn't be shocking for them. But I think the win is, it's very much worth its weight in gold for Fenerbahce here. Felix says he's very glad Textor stayed away from Everton. And good day to you, Benny, as well. Good to see you here. Maninja, just to answer you there, obviously the big negative for Bodo Glimt is that they're not in a competitive match fitness phase, and the Israeli team are. But, I mean, looking back there, I was surprised they beat Besiktas Maccabi, I must say. Don't really know what happened there, but I find Besiktas one of the hardest teams to predict in the whole of Europe, to be honest with you. And RFS, disrespect to them, they're not very good. So I'm not really taking too much from there. The weather, I think, will be a big factor. It will be huge. And even, it's just unimaginable temperatures. I think it's going to be so hard for anyone who's not used to that. Just looking through some there. Ginepi says Lyon can definitely win this, but I would stay away from the 1x2 mark. So there you go. Stay away if you have to. Some more matches then, early ones here. Malmo Twente I've not got anything here, but I've just looked at the table, and a draw doesn't really do anything for either team. I think it's a must-win match for both. So in which case I'll be looking at the overs, but do be careful of the weather in Sweden this time of year. AZ Alkmaar against Roma is an intriguing clash. We've said a few people mention in the outright futures market, Roma could be worth a go. Claudio Ranieri's retiring at the end of the season, but he's already come in and done an unbelievable job to get to turn this ship around from sinking, really. But you've got to pick a lean in this game. AZ Alkmaar plus 240, Roma plus 114, over 2.5 goals at minus 129. Are you liking the Roma revolution?
Yeah, I am, Steve. This Roma revolution under Ranieri, I've got to admit, I was slightly skeptical when he got given the job. It sounded like not a desperate decision, but quite a predictable one. And it almost made me think they didn't really have a contingency plan for the next manager, turning to a manager who had effectively retired. But it's worked out really well. You've got to say they've improved since they appointed Ranieri. And my lean is on Roma here to get the win because, they've played really good football under him. They've generally done well both in Europe and in Serie A. They need a win because I think they're down in 14th in the table, which isn't a bad position, but they're obviously not secure yet in the playoffs. So, again, a little bit like the Fenerbahce pick, it's slightly shorter than I would like on Roma. They're obviously away from home. But I think they've got enough to get the win. And if you look at some of their results, Steve, in Europe under him, they've been good. The 2-2 draw at Tottenham was a good result. They won very comfortably at home to Braga 3-0. So I fancy them today. I think they got a good chance to win this game. AZ Alkmaar, you've got to say they've not done badly either. They're 20th in the table. They're only 6 places behind Roma. They've also had some decent results. If you look through, they've beaten Fenerbahce at home. They've drawn with Galatasaray at home. So they've shown they can compete with some slightly bigger sides. But, they've also had a couple of losses. And, I just think with Roma needing the win, again, we come back to it. But I think the league table, today's games will be really important, looking at which teams are going to be slightly more fired up to try to secure their place in the playoffs. I think Roma are one of them. So for me, yeah, they were a lean. I think they can get the win. And I think plus money, again, it would be nice if it was a bit bigger, but plus 114, I think, is maybe worth a lean.
Yeah, and 91% of the money is on Roma here with 78% of the tickets. Going to the Malmo game, by the way, 64% of the money's on Malmo. That surprised me a little bit. Got to be honest, a side that are struggling a little bit in the Europa League this season in general. A lean for you there. Just going through the comments. Jan Phillips says AZ is good at home. Jan knows his Dutch teams, I must say, really well. And Felix, Immobile, we don't talk about him anymore on these streams after the other day regarding the Lazio game with Simon Holden. But anyway, just looking back, Peter, as well, good to see you in there. 2 big wins for the Dutch side in the Champions League this week, midweek, might bode well for some of the Dutch teams today, but I had no idea. That Feyenoord result yesterday was one of the most baffling ones I've ever seen, James. I couldn't believe that. And then I saw the stats. I had no idea how Bayern didn't score. 3-0 Feyenoord.
Yeah.
That was the last score I ever saw coming there.
Didn't see it coming at all. And you know what, Steve? It's going to be fascinating next week, isn't it? When is it Lille they've got in their final game, Feyenoord next week. So that's it. Yeah, it's a massive game. I think on paper, Lille would have looked at that and thought, that's a very winnable match. Now they're going to be looking at it slightly differently. So I think that will be it'll be a fascinating game next week in the Champions League.
Yeah, I think Feyenoord are probably one of the most toughest teams to predict in the Champions League this season. Viktoria Plzen there against Anderlecht. The interesting thing about this game, it's the most wagered on game on the handle with Bet River Sportsbook today. Nearly 17% of all the money is on this game. Now, I've got to be honest, I didn't really look at this one. I only got the information late, so I didn't have a proper chance to look at this game. But I can tell you now, 68% of that money is on Viktoria Plzen. Anderlecht, we often get a lot of comments about them in the chat. I've not seen any yet today, but they're not a team I follow particularly. Plzen, seen a bit more about them. Plzen here are the favourites, plus 106. I've got to be honest, I don't have a bet for the game. I don't know if you've got anything here, James, at all, but interestingly, it's a really highly wagered game.
Yeah, it is. Well, what I would say about it, Steve, I think this shows that almost the difficulty of understanding what the league table is supposed to be telling us in a way. It's obviously, new territory for us with the European competitions this season and how some of them are organised. Anderlecht are third. Now, that means they're secure in the top 16, but they're not secure yet in the top 8. However, they'll be looking at what are the chances of us finishing the top 8. We may not have been secure in the top 8 yet, but if you're third, you're probably going to be confident that you will finish in the top 8. It makes motivation on these games on the penultimate match day very difficult because teams have got their own agendas in their leagues. They've got their own fixtures coming up this weekend, and they're going to have to try to work out whether they're super close to qualifying, not quite close to qualifying, whatever. So I think what the price reflects is it reflects the difference between a team who currently are not in the top 16 in Viktoria Plzen, who are 17th, and we'll think, right, we've got to try and win this and get in the top 16. And a team who, Anderlecht, will be very, very pleased with how they performed so far. If they're third, people would not have predicted that Anderlecht would be third out of 36 teams with a couple of matches to go. So it just shows how important motivation is. We don't have the team news on these two teams yet. Obviously, we're going to get it fairly shortly because it's one of the earlier kickoffs. But that's how I read this, Steve. Again, I don't have a pick or a lean on this game, but a lot of these prices, I think, reflect just how much a team needs the points, almost as much as it does the quality of the two sides.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised how well Anderlecht have done in this tournament, to be honest with you. They weren't on my radar to do particularly. I don't even have. I mean, I think Club Brugge are by far the best Belgian side, but Anderlecht. I do remember some comments about them back in the day. I remember when they played Leeds actually in the Champions League. Do you remember a big giant striker called Jan Koller?
Yes,
he was huge. Probably well over 6'7", something like that.
6'8".
He was a monster. He was a monstrous striker, but they were, a regular in the Champions League each year, and on a good day, they could probably beat anyone, and that sort of thing. Duncan remembers when Anderlecht were playing Spurs in the UEFA Cup final. I mean, I don't remember.
Wow. Yeah, was that 84? Duncan? I think it was 1984. Yeah, I think
84. We think.
Check with Duncan. Yeah. We can come back on. Yeah.
Dan Robert would know if he was around.
Yes.
Benny, there's no sign of kick out yet, unfortunately. Right, let's have a look now here. Someone was on about they're going to be betting on the draws for every single game. I'm trying to find the comment now, but someone's going to Kingston. I'm playing all the draws today. 16 draws. How many draws are we going to get out of 16? I mean, how many will you need for a profit? Probably
well, do you know what, Steve? It's a really good question. Looking at the prices, I've got a list here of just random games: +275, +265. Then you get +360. Bodo Glimt game is +300 on the tie. The Porto game is +300. So, yeah, interesting. You've got to calculate the worst draws, haven't you? If the worst draw scores were the ones which prices were the ones that cashed, then you're going to need a few more. But very interesting.
Yeah, very much indeed. Okay, on to the later kickoffs. Then this is 3 p.m. Eastern time, and the Battle of Britain to start things off with. This is the big tie, isn't it? Manchester United against Rangers. I don't really think Manchester United can be backed at -230 against anyone right now. I mean, even the Southampton game last week, they were fortunate there to get over the line, I thought personally. I've got a bet for this game, James. It's both teams score yes, -143. Quite confident in this one. Rangers, the last time he didn't score, I think was something like 22 matches ago. Okay, they're facing a lot of very poor Scottish teams in that run, but that is still a great streak. And I mean, Manchester United have only kept one clean sheet under Ruben Amorim, and that it was against Everton. So, I mean, I think -143 is a big price. Rangers very capable of getting on the score sheet here. Manchester United, you would think, should do as well. They will be quite. I mean, this is one of the most biggest wagered games. The fourth most wagered match. I actually thought it might be the most wagered game. But perhaps that is maybe there's not as much confidence in Manchester United as there could be. But still, 92% of the money is on Man United. 95% of the tickets are on Manchester United. So are you going to be lumping on the Man United train or not?
No, I am not. I'm not, Steve. I mean, I've got a lean on this game, and it's on Rangers because I just don't think you can back Man United. Minus 230. I mean, I get it on one level. It's still Man United. We know who their players are. We know they're actually capable of producing a big performance now and again. Yeah, we saw them do all right, haven't we, against Liverpool and Arsenal recently? But I don't understand why you would back them really, because it's so unreliable. Is that team yeah, they're not for me at all worth backing at that price. So my lean is on Rangers on the Asian handicap with a plus 1.25 goal start, which is available at minus 121. With that lean, you only lose if United win the game by 2 or more goals. I've got no confidence that United would win this game by 2 or more goals, so I'm very happy to back Rangers. And actually, if you look at Rangers games in Europe so far, Steve, you've mentioned them scoring goals in all competitions, and it's not just that, but they've also had good results. They had that heavy defeat at home to Lyon. They lost 4-1, but they won at Malmo. They won 4-1 at Nice. They drew 1-1 at home to Tottenham, and they drew 1-1 away at Olympiacos. So actually, if you look at how they're doing in this tournament, they're doing really, really well. Manchester United are 7th in the standings. Rangers are 8th. So over the 6 games we've seen so far, Rangers have shown they're pretty much as good as Man United. Now, I'm not saying that they are. If they were to play each other 100 times at Old Trafford, Man United would win most of those games. But minus 230 on Man United at home, I just can't support that. So I think Rangers are worth a lean. I also like your pick on the game, Steve, on the goals. I think that's arguably as good a bet as well because of their scoring record and United's record of conceding goals. But for me, it would be try and find a way to support Rangers here, because we've all seen just how inconsistent and how often United have been disappointing recently.
Yeah, that's a big handicap, plus 1.25 on Rangers. This seems quite a lot for Man United to be taking. I mean, I'm not even sure they win the game, let alone, cover a handicap here. And let's be honest as well, by the way, that both teams are in the top 8 as it stands. It's not like it's the end of the earth, this game. It's not all or nothing for Man United. No. So, but I think Man United are becoming quite a predictable side to face because we know exactly what we're going to get. Ruben Amorim is not changing his system. He's absolutely adamant he will get it right. And when they play well, obviously it can look good, but I think it's at the minute looking better against as when they're a big underdog rather than favourite, personally.
That's a very good point, actually, Steve, because if you think of the performances I mentioned there, they're going into them not under no pressure, because it's Man United that are always under pressure, but where they're not the favourites, that's actually where we have seen them play a little bit better recently, isn't it? So it's interesting. It's not that it's almost a no-win game this for United, because everyone expects them to win at home to Rangers. You can only lose by not beating them by 2 or 3 goals, and I just feel that pressure is not something they're really built to deal with at the moment.
Felix has put Vaclav Cherny over 0.5 shots on target, minus 110. That is a player I'm keeping my eye on in this game as well. He averages a very high shot count in Europa League, where Rangers will get more time and space, by the way, compared to Scottish Premier League games. I was looking at his shot line. It's 2.5 with Bet Rivers at plus 140. He's the sort of player who will get on the break and may well look to be a little bit selfish and score maybe a wonder goal, or like to take his shot when there's not many other options around him. So he is a player very much worth considering. Mate SK is going Man United long shot game, both teams scoring both halves. That's not a bad shout. I could see that. And I think Nigel's put up 2-2 and 3-3 as potential scores. It is the sort of match, isn't it, where you get something wild out of it. You wouldn't be surprised here. Is anyone backing Man United in the chat, just out of interest? Anyone really like Man United to deliver here on the handicap? Because I'm just struggling to see any real case for them. Yeah, Clayton said there, minus 230 seems quite laughable, doesn't it? I wouldn't touch them with Monopoly money. Lazio Real Sociedad it's quite a big tie, actually. 2 decent teams in their own league playing pretty well this season. I mean, I've not got anything on this game because we've got a clash of styles. We've got an over sort of team in Lazio, and everyone knows Real Sociedad are the under kings, both teams to score no. So something's got to give here. I don't know which direction. I mean, because it's the Europa League, I'd maybe go with goals, James. But, it should be a good game. in terms of for the purist of soccer, but from a betting perspective, maybe difficult because of the clash of styles.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting Lazio is so short here because we talked about the Anderlecht game and the fact that the price there on Viktoria Plzen being short maybe reflected Anderlecht not needing the points. Lazio are first in the table. They've been brilliant in Europe and they don't really need the points in the sense that they're top and, they're in really good position, but they're still quite short price favourites here. So I'm a little bit surprised at that. It makes sense really based on the quality of the team. I think they've done really well in Europe and they've been pretty competitive in Serie A as well. So it was one for me to leave alone. I just wondered if Lazio might rotate here. I don't know that. I've not heard anything from the media on that front, but I just feel that the teams at the very top who maybe don't need the points, I'm not that keen to support them really. So yeah, very interesting game, but I think one to leave alone.
Yeah, watch out for rotation as well in this sort of match. Real Sociedad, the Spanish sides are well known for it. So I find this a really difficult match from both predicting the outcome and also from a betting perspective. I think the odds look about right, really. Maybe a little bit of generosity on the over 2.5 goal line at plus 128. But you've got to be a brave man to be betting on Real Sociedad overs. You really do. They have a knack of so many under matches. PAOK against Slavia Prague. I've got a lean here on Slavia Prague draw no bet. My main gripe is the lack of competitive action, but I think Slavia are a good team and have been unlucky in a lot of matches. If you look back at their games, they've lost 4 straight in this, but they definitely should have more points on the board. I think you could back them on the draw no bet here away in Greece. Again, it's not the sort of location you want to be traveling to, but at minus 106, they really need a result, Slavia Prague. I'm really surprised that they are where they are in the table. Down in 29th place, it's getting to a stage where it's do or die. PAOK only on 7 points as well. So it's going to be a nervy game, but I do believe that Slavia are the best team from the Czech Republic. Just their fixtures have been tricky, actually, to be fair to them. This might be a little bit more manageable. Yeah.
Well, I put next to their name must win because you've said it, Steve, they're down there. And for some of those teams, it's must win time, isn't it? 2 games to go and they're way outside the playoffs or where they want to be, really. So, yeah, you know more about the team than I do, Steve, but they're certainly one of the sides who, when it comes to motivation, will they be focused on this game? I think they absolutely will. And they also fall into the category of sides who will want to take this competition seriously and try and stay in it if they can for all sorts of reasons. So, there's certainly no questions about how focused on this game they're going to be. They're going to be really, really up for it.
Yeah, and 79% of the money's on Slavia Prague here as well. So the away side are a public dog here. Plus 170 now on that money line. I'm recommending draw no bet. But you are right. It is kind of do or die. It might be the sort of match with, if it is level with, say, 10 minutes to go, that they are forced to go for it, which sometimes you wonder if there's any point in having the draw no bet security in a match like that. But, play the percentages. They say it's usually the best way. Luda Gerrits against FC Midtjylland. I've got to be honest, I've got absolutely nothing for this game whatsoever at all. And there's nothing remarkable to say about it. But 63% of the money and 73% of the tickets are on Midtjylland, the Danish side here. Let us know in chat if you've got anything for this game. I just didn't really know enough about the teams today, and the odds just seemed pretty fair to me. And you saying the same there, James? Nothing here?
Yeah. Again, it's a must-win game, isn't it, for Ludo Goretz? That's what I would say on it, and I think that's slightly reflected in those prices. But again, it's one of those where I think the market is slightly reflecting the need for points, but it looks about right to me. I've got nothing on that match.
Let's move on to the final 4 games then. A really interesting clash here in Sweden. Elfsborg against Nice. Elfsborg plus 190. The ties plus 265 and Nice are the favourites at plus 128. Now, I do have a bet in this game and I'll come to it soon. You've got an official pick as well. It's in the player props market. But tell us about this game, James, because Nice, for those looking at the Europa League table, are down there second bottom of the table on 2 points on the board.
Yeah.
They can't qualify. Sure, I mean, mathematically, it might be possible, but they're out of the race, aren't they, Nice?
Yeah, pretty much. I think one of the headlines in the papers today in France was 1 in 50 chance or something like that. They're not completely out of it. They have to win to have any chance of staying in it. And then it's a case of other results going in their favour. And let's not even try picking that out because there's too many results to take into account. My question on Nice is, do they still want to qualify? Now, yes, they do want to qualify, but they've rested players tonight. And when I say rested players, players who haven't even travelled as part of the squad. So I don't think they're writing the game off, but I think they're slightly hedging their bets. They've got a very big game in France at the weekend. They're playing Marseille, which is a huge league match. So listen, they've got some decent backup players of Nice. They'll still be able to field a decent side, but I don't think it's an all-out focus. And if they go out of it, then yes, they'll be disappointed. But I think they've kind of come to terms with where they are in Europe now and have maybe already said, well, it looks like we're heading out. So it's an interesting one to see how short they are, plus 128 favourites to win this. They are a better side than Elfsborg, in my opinion. And even with a few players that they've rested tonight, I still think they can be competitive. And, as I say, some of the reserve players or the B team players who might normally be on the bench in League One, they might get a run out tonight. And some of them are pretty good. So let's wait and see. But yeah, my pick on the game is in the props market, like you say, Steve, and it's on Jonathan Klaus. Now, Jonathan Klaus is a right back. He's the number 2 right back for France, generally behind Jules Koundé of Barcelona. And he's an attacking right back. And I just feel that it's a big chance for him tonight if he's picked. And it's a big if. He's in the squad, but we don't know to what degree they're going to rotate. But if he is picked, he'll be one of their on-pitch leaders, and they'll be looking for a big performance from him because this is an experienced France international. And as I say, he's an attacking right back. So I'm backing him in the over 0.5 shots on target market because I think he's a really big price. He's available, or he was available when I found this, at plus 255. He's probably going to be around that price now. Jonathan Klaus is not a player who scores lots of goals, but he is a player who likes to get forward. And in a game where one or two of the other experienced leaders in this side are rested, then I think Jonathan Klaus will feel he's got to set an example. So, yeah, I can see him having a go here and getting forward. Not got anything to lose. They need to win the game, right? They have to take risks. And they'll be asking their better players to take some of those risks for them. So I think if he starts the game, you might want to wait for team news to find out. And this is in the later batch of matches. But if he starts the game, I think Jonathan Klaus will be getting forward when he can. And I think that price on having just one shot on target in the game is worth looking at because, as I say, he's a player who's capable of getting forward. And I think Nice will need him to do that tonight. So that's my pick on the game. It's Jonathan Klaus. Over 0.5 shots on target, and it's plus 255.
Yeah, that looks a big price for Jonathan Klaus. Just looking through the player props market for this match, what about Nicholas Hult for a shot on target, plus 360 against his former club? Plays for Elfsborg, of course, now on in a 3-5-2 system, sort of left midfield. If you can, it's not a role that's used that often these days, but he will be getting forward. So I wonder if he fancies a shot against his old club. I like Elfsborg here, draw no bet, plus 125. Just think motivation's the thing. Nice, I think, are sacking this game off, really, if we're being honest. Focusing on Marseille at the weekend. They've rested players. Doesn't mean they're not going to try, but this is a great chance for Elfsborg. Home advantage. The weather, again, is going to be very favourable for the side that's used to it. Around 0 degrees Celsius, cold and miserable. And Nice really going to fancy this from the Riviera there in the south of France to Boras in western Sweden. The problem is Elfsborg haven't played a competitive game for a while, and this is more of a problem for Swedish teams because their league finishes a lot sooner than the likes of Norway and stuff. So they could be lacking reps here, and they've lost one of their best players, Michael Bodo, who went to Plymouth only for like €2 million. I was a great signing for Plymouth. For me, he's definitely top end of the championship, not bottom end. I thought it was a great buy, actually, for Plymouth. But so that's a bit of a blow. But I do think they're worth a go here. Plus 125, draw no bet. They do have an easier final game against Spurs away. So they might just take the point here. And I think next week we'll get the win. But Elfsborg, they've been really good in this Europa League. They've given it their heart and soul. And why not get another result here against a Nice team who have been struggling? Other matches to talk about. There's a lot of comments about Frankfurt being a candidate to win the Europa League this season. They're obviously going very, very well in the standings at the moment. I'm trying to find them out. 5th place for them, 6th place on 13 points, -195 favourites against Ferencvaros, who 9 points on the board for them. Would you take Frankfurt here? There's a danger of rotation, surely, with the German side.
That's my concern, Steve. It's simply that rotation. I think the price is fair if Eintracht Frankfurt are going all out to win this game and playing their strongest side. Rotation would be my concern. They're 6th in the Europa League table. Do they need? Well, they're going to go for the win, obviously, but do they need to play their strongest side? So, not quite sure about that. And they're up against one of those sides who are right on the fringes of the top 16. Well, I think they're 16th, Ferencvaros. So, it's one of those where the price is quite short. And then if you look at Eintracht Frankfurt on the handicap, there's going to be -1 on the handicap, close to evens, or -1.25. It's all about the team news. So not for me. There's no pick for me on this game. As I said, I think it's a fair price. It makes sense, but it only really makes sense if they put out their strongest side for me.
RFS against Ajax. Someone mentioned, I think they're backing Ajax on the handicap in this game. Big -300 favourites. Going quite well domestically, challenging PSV. RFS, I've got to be honest, on paper, one of the worst teams in this competition. Ajax should get the win here if they want it. I don't know if they're going to rotate a lot. Maybe some of the Dutch experts in the chat might know a bit better than us here. I'm not betting on the game, but I would expect an away win here, James, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would think so. Again, looking at the positions, Ajax need the win. They're 11th. They can't ease off yet. It's very, very close in that sort of midsection or upper midsection of the league standings. And RFS, well, it's a must-win game, but they're in a similar position to Nice. I mean, they're 34th. They're just one place above Nice. Do they actually think they can qualify? We don't know. We're not in the camp. We don't know what they think. But there is a big difference in class here. And as I say, Ajax can't afford to not try and win this game, right? So they'll see it, I think, as a really good opportunity to get 3 points, and they almost certainly should get the 3 points.
Yeah, this is the second most wagered game by handle, actually. 14% of the money is on this match, and one of the biggest bets of the day is actually Ajax on the money line for half-time here. So obviously, if you're following the money, Ajax are very popular here. We've got 97% of the tickets on them, 81% of the money, plus that half-time money as well. Jan is coming chat. He thinks under 3.5. He doesn't think they'll play with the best 11, which is fair, but probably a rotated Ajax should still have more than enough for RFS. Don't know what the weather. I mean, I'll actually check the weather for this game, but I'd imagine in Latvia this time of year it's not too pleasant. But I haven't actually checked that one. Benny says Ajax and under 4.5. So maybe if you were thinking Ajax win to 0 here, could be a possible angle. There's a Bet Rivers special. Manchester United, Eintracht Frankfurt, and Ajax all to win at +175. We have labelled our doubts about a couple of them teams. But if you do like that, those are raised odds, and you'll get some good value. There's another house special as well, and that is that over 2.5 goals will be scored in Nice versus Elfsborg, and Braga against Union Saint-Gilloise, and that's at +200. And this finishes our conversation on the matches today. Union Saint-Gilloise, the Belgian side, against Braga. Are the overs going to be the bet here, James, or not? Two sides who I always have problems with, I've got to be honest. You never know which versions of them. Tend to be a lot of shots involved when these sides play, but not always goals.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the few games I wasn't really sure about at all, actually, Steve. So, I mean, I looked at it and thought, well, you're right. The two teams, you're never quite sure what you're going to get. And I think there are better games to be focused on than this one. It should be entertaining. I think it's one of those games between two sides who can produce some pretty entertaining football. So for me, it was one to maybe watch and keep an eye on and see what you can learn, on these two sides, because this competition, let's not forget, has still got a long way to go. We've had such a huge group stage, haven't we? We haven't even got to the knockout phase yet, so there's still a lot we can learn about these sides, many of whom are going to go forward either into the playoffs and then further on into the competition as well.
Yeah, just looking through there, Tottenham have gone very strong tonight, according to Nigel. Just seeing the team now. Austin in goal, Gray, Davis, Draggers in, Porro, Madison, Kulusevski, Bergvall, Son, Richarlison and Kerr. Wow. That is a very strong lineup for Tottenham against this Hoffenheim side who've been struggling. I mean, that Spurs team probably should be winning that game if we are being honest. Plus 130 now, though, on Tottenham. So if you do like that, then you get on it now before I'd imagine that price might come close towards maybe plus 110, plus 115. On closer to kick-off, just looking through some of the comments. Marcus Anderson's, hello from Latvia. We've got people from everywhere, James, in this chat. 3 degrees and a little bit windy.
That's
Sounds
all right.
okay-ish, I think, there. Okay, well, that concludes it then, James. Best bet for today. What do you reckon? Ian Messina's asking.
Well, my best bet, and I don't like to do a props bet as a best bet because, it's a props bet, but my strongest is on Jonathan Klaus in the over 0.5 shots on target market. But looking at the more mainstream selections, my strongest lean or pick really among the others is on Rangers to get something here. I do think Rangers plus 1.25 on the Asian handicap of the match bets, or the bets on which of the two teams do I fancy in the games where I like something. Rangers plus 125 on the Asian handicap for me is the best bet.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I think that might be the best bet, that Rangers plus 1.25. It's a big handicap, but I do like the Bodo Glimt -1 Asian line. And I do like both teams score yes at Old Trafford. Man United, Rangers, both teams score yes -143. But yeah, thanks very much for your time as always, James, and thanks everyone who came into the chat today. And great to see so many comments from far and wide, giving us local information that we really need. Take care, y'all. Remember to gamble responsibly. Subscribe to the newsletter as always. And Nigel's going to be on tomorrow's show with Doug, who had a great debut looking at NFL championship rounds, in addition to some Australian Open tennis. But yeah, take care, y'all, and we'll see you next time on Betting Weekly Live.